Many people think aging alone is what takes life away, but that's not the whole story. The real threats are much more subtle and often invisible. They show up in everyday habits, emotional patterns, and quiet neglect. It's not the body that gives up first, it's the mind, the spirit, and a lack of purpose. By the time you notice the signs, it's often too late. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. Once you recognize these hidden forces, you can fight back and not just add years to your life, but add life to your years. Stick around until the end, because the last reason is the most important, and it's often the most overlooked. The silent enemy is inflammation. The fire you don't even know you're sitting on. Most people over 60 are unknowingly carrying a fire inside, not one of passion or motivation, but the slow, relentless burn of chronic inflammation. This invisible fire attacks tissues, nerves, blood vessels, joints, and even the brain. And because it doesn't scream for attention, many people simply ignore it. They chalk it up to aging, saying it's just part of getting old. But let's be clear, fatigue, stiffness, brain fog, aching joints, and poor recovery are not signs of normal aging. They are red flags. And that feeling of burning deep inside, that's not wear and tear. That's your immune system malfunction. It's your body treating you like a threat, day after day. Chronic inflammation is the silent villain behind almost every major illness that hits later in life. It's not just an immune response, it's a system breakdown, where the body loses control over when to turn the response off. Once that happens, damage starts to pile up. The heart becomes inflamed, arteries stiffen, plaque builds up, blood pressure rises, the joints swell, causing arthritis, pain, and limited movement without any obvious cause. The brain suffers too. Cognition slows, moods shift, memory fades, and eventually it leads to dementia. Even cancer flourishes in an inflamed environment, feeding off the same chaos to grow and spread, and yet people keep treating the symptoms instead of the cause. When their joints ache, they get injections. If their blood pressure spikes, they take pills. They're exhausted, so they reach for coffee. Their mind is foggy and they blame aging. But no one is asking the deeper question, why is the body inflamed in the first place? Why are your cells treating life like a battlefield? Why is your immune system attacking your own body? That's the question medicine often skips, because it's not easy. It requires lifestyle changes, awareness, and personal responsibility. The truth is, inflammation doesn't just appear overnight. It builds up gradually, like a slow leak from years of neglect, from poor sleep, processed foods, chronic stress, shallow breathing, emotional suppression, sitting for too long, and ignoring your body's warning sign. What starts as low-level inflammation, morning stiffness, irritability, brain fog, eventually spreads throughout your body. You don't notice it at first, but eventually it can destroy something vital. Here's what most people don't realize. You can have high levels of inflammation without ever feeling feverish. You can have elevated inflammation markers even with normal blood pressure. Inflammation doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just whispers. You feel it when your skin bruises easily. You notice it when your digestion becomes more sensitive. You feel it in your joints, your mind, and your energy. You feel it in your energy when a regular day leaves you completely drained. You notice it in your recovery, that small injury that should have healed in days, but instead it drags on for weeks. That's inflammation, keeping your body in a constant state of emergency. If you want to live past 80, not just to survive but to thrive, you need to lower that internal fight. You need to calm your system. And that doesn't begin at the pharmacy. It starts in your kitchen, in your nervous system, and in the first hour of your morning and the last hour before bed. Inflammation is driven by your lifestyle, not just one bad choice, but by thousands of small decisions made over decades. So what can you do differently? Eat for purpose. Choose whole foods, not because they're trendy, but because your immune system treats everything you consume like a message. Processed oils, refined sugars, and artificial additives confuse your system, triggering unnecessary defense responses. On the other hand, whole vegetables, healthy fats, berries, and wild fish don't just nourish your body, they help to calm inflammation and cool that internal flame. Move daily. The goal isn't to burn calories, but to activate your lymphatic system, circulate blood, and move immune cells. Even a 10-minute walk can lower inflammatory markers. Your body was designed for movement, and stagnation only fuels the fire. Prioritize sleep. During deep sleep, your brain cleans out inflammatory waste. If you miss this important window, toxins start to build up, leaving you feeling groggy and sluggish in the morning. That's not aging, that's unflushed inflammation. Manage stress through discipline, not distraction. Breathe deeply, find quiet moments, and stop fighting life. Every unresolved emotion keeps your body in a state of fight or flight, producing chronic cortisol that directly fuels inflammation. Stop lying to yourself. Don't brush off the warning signs. Your joints don't hurt for no reason. Your brain didn't just randomly slow down. Your mood didn't shift overnight. These are red flags, and the longer you ignore them, the harder it will be to reverse the damage. Here's the truth. Aging doesn't kill people, inflammation does. Aging is natural, but inflammation is the accelerator. It's the reason 65 can feel like 85, and the hidden culprit behind sudden diagnoses. And it doesn't announce itself with loud alarms. It appears quietly, in fatigue, apathy, random aches, and that nagging sense that you're not quite yourself anymore. If you don't take it seriously, one day it could turn into something fatal, a stroke, heart attack, or cancer diagnosis, and everyone will say it came out of nowhere. But it didn't. The fire was burning the whole time. So stop ignoring it, cool the flame, feed your body what it needs. Move, rest, heal, and pay attention. Inflammation doesn't have to dictate your future, but if left unchecked, it will shape it. Posture, the collapse before the fall. Most people don't lose their independence due to disease. They lose it because their body has gradually collapsed quietly, over time, until one day they're hunched over, shuffling their feet, relying on furniture to stand up, and telling themselves it's just a part of getting older. But here's something tough that most doctors won't tell you. You don't need a cane because you're aging. You need it because your spine has collapsed, your core has stopped firing, your glutes have forgotten how to activate, your chest has caved in, and your shoulders have rounded forward. Once this becomes your new normal, everything else starts to break down. This collapse doesn't happen overnight. It's the result of years of neglecting your body. And it's not something that happens by accident. It's a slow decline that can be prevented with consistent attention to your posture, movement, and strength. It all starts with sitting too long, moving too little, and breathing too shallow. Your pelvis tilts, your hip flexors tighten, your thoracic spine rounds forward, and your head starts jutting out. Little by little, your body forgets how to stand tall. You stop walking with confidence. Your stride shortens, and your balance becomes fragile. You're not falling because you're getting older. You're falling because your foundation has eroded while you weren't paying attention. Postural decay is one of the most overlooked signs of aging. It's not just about appearance. It's about function. When your posture collapses, your rib cage can't expand properly. This leads to shallow breathing, less oxygen, and lower energy levels. Your digestion gets compressed. Circulation becomes less efficient, and your organs are literally being squeezed. Your spine becomes unstable, and your gait turns into a shuffle. And when your gait goes, your risk of falling skyrockets. Once you hit 70, a fall can be the beginning of the end. A fractured hip, a hospital stay, and then a wheelchair. It's a slow descent, and it all starts with your posture. But here's the thing they won't tell you. This isn't inevitable. It's a habit. Posture is a daily decision that, when repeated enough, becomes automatic. The great news, you can change it, no matter your age. Your muscles aren't gone. They're just asleep. They've been neglected, but they can be awakened. Your nervous system hasn't forgotten how to move. It just mirrors the movements you practice. So if you slouch for hours every day, your body molds to that shape. But if you begin to reverse it, even slowly, even gently, your body will start to remember proper alignment. You can reactivate your glutes, strengthen your back, open your chest, and realign your hip. You can rebuild the very structure that keeps you upright. And you don't need a gym or a trainer, just consistency, attention, and awareness. Start with your breath. Most people over 60 breathe as if they're just surviving, not living. Shallow chest breaths, high tension, and low oxygen. But if you breathe deeply into your belly, into your ribs, and through your full diaphragm, your posture will naturally start to lift. Deep breathing requires space. It forces expansion. When your breath expands, your spine follows. Then add small intentional movements like glute bridges, wall angels, chin tucks, hip openers, and gentle thoracic extensions. These aren't workouts. They're reminders, signals to your nervous system that these areas still matter, that you still care. That strength still has a place in your body. Do these daily, not as punishment, but as devotion. Not because you want to look younger, but because you're fighting for function. You're preserving independence, dignity, and power. And here's the deeper part that most people don't talk about. Posture is psychological too. When your body collapses inward, your mind follows, your worldview narrows, your mood dips, and your confidence fades. Your very identity begins to shrink. Studies show that posture affects your hormone levels. Slouched positions increase cortisol, the stress hormone, and decrease testosterone. Not only do you feel weaker, but your body also becomes weaker. Once that loop begins, it's hard to break. You look down, you feel down, and you move less. Life gets smaller, not because of a tragic event, but because your spine slowly surrendered, without a fight. But here's the good news. The opposite is true as well. When you regain your posture, your mind rises with, stand taller, and your confidence, your mood and your outlook on life will naturally follow. When you stand tall, you think more clearly, you breathe more deeply, you feel more capable, and it shows. People treat you differently too. It's unspoken, but everyone notices. Strong posture signals vitality, while weak posture signals decline, and the world responds accordingly. That's why this isn't just about preventing falls. It's about reclaiming your presence, reclaiming you. So if you've been neglecting your posture, don't wait until you need a cane to realize your foundation is crumbling. Start now. Sit with intention, walk with awareness, breathe deeply, stretch the front of your body, strengthen your back, and remind yourself daily, this structure is yours to rebuild. Every day you delay, gravity wins a little more, but every day you fight, alignment returns, strength returns, clarity returns, and with that your future shifts. Because aging doesn't kill you, collapse does. The kind of collapse that happens so slowly, you don't notice until it's too late. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can rise, you can rebuild, and when you do, your body won't just feel different, it will be different. Isolation, this silent killer. As we age, something dangerous begins to happen. Not all at once, but slowly, subtly. Over time, we start to shrink our world. We stop making plans. We stop picking up the phone. We say no more than we say yes. We retire not just from our careers, but from connection. We go from having full social calendars to quiet routines, from being surrounded by people every day to spending hours alone. And without realizing it, we begin to disappear, not physically, but emotionally, not visibly, but biologically. That's when the real damage starts. Because isolation, more than almost anything else, is deadly. Let's be clear, you can be surrounded by people and still feel isolated. You can live with family and still feel alone. Emotional isolation isn't about proximity, it's about connection. It's about whether anyone truly sees you, whether anyone checks in on your thoughts, whether your life is part of a shared reality or just a private loop of silence. As emotional detachment grows, the consequences are more than just psychological, they become physical. According to the National Institute on Aging, social isolation increases mortality risk by up to 30%. That's not just a feeling, it's a death sentence, waiting in the shadows. Why? Because isolation doesn't just hurt, it changes your body's chemistry. Cortisol rises, inflammation follows, immune function drops, brain activity slows, memory begins to slip, and depression sets in. Not because of trauma, but because the body responds to a lack of emotional stimulation, as if it were starvation. And in a way it is. You're starving for interaction, for significance, for resonance, and your biology doesn't take that lightly. Humans are social creatures. We are biologically wired to connect, to be seen, to be heard, to be mirrored. From birth to death, your nervous system requires other people to regulate itself. A baby dies without touch. An elder dies faster without attention, and that never stops. Your biology doesn't retire from connection just because you do. If no one sees you, your nervous system becomes dysregulated. Your stress levels stay high, your healing slows down, and most critically, your motivation shrinks. You start to care less. You move less. You eat worse. You sleep lighter. You skip out on the things that bring you joy, because without connection, it all feels a little less important. The walk, the stretch, the call, why bother? No one's watching. No one's asking. And so your brain adapts to that loneliness. Like a muscle adapts to disuse, it begins to atrophy. You forget names. You lose interest in stories. You stop sharing. And slowly, the vibrancy of your inner life fades. Not because you're broken, but because you've disconnected. But here's what most people don't realize. The moment you reconnect, even in small ways, your biology begins to reverse. When you laugh, when you share space, when you tell a story to someone who listens, your cells come alive, your heart rate steadies, your digestion improves, your immune response strengthens, and your focus sharpens. Why? Because you've re-entered the human feedback loop. You're no longer alone in the forest of your mind. Someone else is there, witnessing, reflecting, mirroring your aliveness back to you. That's not just nice, it's necessary. And if you're over 60, this is not some side note. It's a core health strategy. Forget the supplements. Forget the anti-aging cream. If you want to live longer and stronger, build relationships, reconnect, expand your emotional footprint, volunteer at a shelter, mentor someone younger, join a book club, start a walking group, not for entertainment, but for survival. Connection is your medicine now, and you need to take it daily. Don't believe the lie that your social chapter is over. Don't buy into the myth that making new friends is only for the young, or that your best stories have already been told. They have. There are people out there who need your wisdom, your humor, your scars, your perspective, but they can't find you if you disappear. You have to show up. You have to be findable. Yes, it takes effort. Yes, it's awkward at first. Yes, you might feel rusty, but what's the alternative? Sitting alone in silence, convincing yourself that your presence doesn't matter, that no one would notice if you vanished. That's not aging. That's surrender. And you were never meant to surrender. So ask yourself honestly, when was the last time someone really heard? When did you last laugh with someone until your eyes watered? When was the last time someone asked how you were doing and waited long enough for a real answer? If it's been a while, don't wait for the world to knock on your door. Go knock on theirs. Be the one who calls. Be the one who shows up. Be the one who says, I'm not done connecting yet. Because here's the hard truth. Once your social world dies, your physical body starts to follow. Your muscles weaken. Your memory fades. Your sleep becomes shallow. And your emotional center, the spark that makes life worth living, dim. But here's the good news. Connection can bring it all back. One conversation, one shared meal, one walk, one moment of being seen. That's all it takes to start restoring what was lost. Don't let this culture of isolation swallow you. Don't settle for small talk and empty days. Fight for depth. Fight for laughter. Fight for friendship. Because connection isn't just a bonus at this stage in life. It's your lifeline. And you're still here, still needed, still capable of creating joy, but only if you choose not to vanish. Stagnation, the brain you stop using. People often blame aging for everything. The fog, the forgetfulness, the slower reactions, the hesitation in speech. They assume it's all just part of growing old, but the truth is much harsher and far more important. Most of what you call aging, it's not about time, it's about neglect, it's about stagnation. The brain doesn't stop working because you get older. It stops working because you stop using it. Research is clear. Not all memory loss is neurological. Much of it is behavioral. When you stop learning, your brain starts pruning itself. When you stop solving new problems, it stops building new pathways. When you stop using your hands and eyes in coordinated, challenging ways, your motor cortex slows down. And when there's no new input, no friction, no demand, no real learning, the brain doesn't just get bored, it atrophies. Neurons disconnect, synapses fade, your capacity doesn't disappear, it rusts. And once that rust becomes your new baseline, you might start mistaking it for your identity. Let's be blunt, your brain isn't old, it's unused. Most people hit 60, retire, and unconsciously retire their minds at the same time. They fall into predictable routines. They eat the same meals, read the same headlines, watch the same shows, and talk to the same people. They confuse comfort with stability. In doing so, the most dangerous state a human can experience. Cognitive autopilot. Everything becomes safe, familiar, and predictable. But because nothing challenges their awareness, nothing grows. Here's what no one tells you. Your brain is designed for tension. It grows through effort, confusion, trial and error, and by making sense of new patterns. If you're not regularly doing something that makes your brain uncomfortable, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying. Neurologically speaking, the frontal lobe shrinks, the hippocampus weakens, neuroplasticity slows down. That's when people start slipping. They forget names, blank out in mid-conversation, and repeat stories. Before long, the fog sets in, not because the brain is broken, but because it's unchallenged. Crossword puzzles and Sudoku, they're not enough. These are maintenance tools, not growth tools. Your brain needs novelty. It needs new movement, new language, new rhythms, and new skills that challenge you to fail, adapt, and try again. This is how you rebuild gray matter. This is how you wake up dormant circuits that haven't fired in years. The greatest lie about aging is that you're supposed to slow down, that it's normal to feel less sharp, that brain fog is inevitable. But it's not. It's the result of a society that stops demanding your mental performance. The moment you turn 60, no one pushes you to learn. No one expects you to innovate, but you have to fight against them. You have to be your own coach, your own student, your own source of intellectual challenge, because no one else will do it for you. So how do you break free from stagnation? Start small. Use your non-dominant hand to brush your teeth. Learn to write the alphabet with it. This activates new neural networks across both hemispheres. Take a course not for fun, but for struggle. Choose something that forces you to think differently. Philosophy, music theory, coding, history, a foreign language, anything that confronts you with unfamiliar rules. Learn to memorize again. Phone numbers, quotes, names of people you just met. Practice recalling them. Rebuild your working memory. It's a muscle and it can grow. Read books that challenge your assumptions, not just the ones that confirm what you already believe. Debate ideas aloud. Have conversations that challenge your thinking, that push you to think harder than you're used to. These are mental workouts, just as vital as lifting weights for your body. And move. Movement sharpens cognition. It's not just walking. It's coordinated, intentional movement. Balance drills, dancing, martial arts, learning a new physical skill, forces your brain and body to reconnect. It stimulates proprioception, reflex timing, and coordination. These things don't just keep you nimble, they keep you intact. Movement is thought in physical form. Don't fall for the comfort trap. The moment something gets easy, push yourself a little further. The goal isn't to feel smart, it's to feel stretched, confused, and curious. Learning isn't a luxury, it's cognitive survival. The brain was never meant to be a storage bin. It's a processing machine. If you stop feeding it challenges, it slows down, and eventually it shuts down. The fog many people experience after 60 isn't random, it's predictable and preventable. But only if you stop treating your brain like a relic and start treating it like a living system, one that needs novelty, struggle, and risk. If you neglect it, it decays silently, and by the time you notice, it's hard to reverse. So don't wait for dementia to scare you into action. Don't wait until you can't remember your doctor's name. Start now. Stretch your brain every day. Make it sweat. Learn something difficult. Challenge yourself until you feel mentally uncomfortable, and stay there. Because on the other side of that discomfort is clarity, strength, and longevity. You're not forgetful because of age. You're forgetful because your mind has been idle. The only cure for stagnation is movement, not just of the body but of the mind. So move, learn, struggle, repeat, or let it all slip away in silence. Purpose. The decision to live or fade. This is the final killer, the one that nobody sees coming. It's the most silent, most underestimated force behind decline. It's not disease. It's not genetics. It's the loss of purpose. And it doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, like a switch being dimmed over the years, until one day there's no light left. The tragedy is, most people think they've done everything right. They worked hard, provided for their families, followed the rules, and earned the right to rest. Then they retire, not just from work but from effort, from choosing, from steering their own lives. At first it feels like peace. No alarms, no deadlines, no pressure. But that peace, if untethered from purpose, turns toxic. It mutates into passivity, numbness, and decay. Because your biology isn't designed for permanent stillness. You are hardwired to move towards something meaningful, something that demands presence, planning, and decision-making. When that aim disappears, your body doesn't rejoice. It downshifts. It reads the absence of direction as a signal. We're done. And then it begins to shut down, one system at a time. Digestion slows, hunger fades, hormones drop, sleep becomes lighter, reaction time dulls, muscles begin to waste, healing slows down, the brain stops building new cells. All of this happens because the internal systems don't see a reason to stay sharp. They assume the story has reached its final act. And in many ways it has, not because of age, but because of choice. Not choosing is still a choice. And that choice leads to silent surrender. Everywhere you look, People who once led families, companies, and movements now spend hours on couches, scrolling or watching TV, slowly fading away. They go from creators to consumers, from leaders to bystanders. They stop using their voice, stop standing for anything. And little by little, the body mirrors the mind, the spine collapses, the eyes lose their spark, the walk slows down. There's no fire left, not because it was taken but because they stopped feeding it. But there is another way. The people who live the longest and live the best aren't necessarily those with perfect lab results or the best genetics. They're the ones with reasons. Reasons to get up, reasons to show up, reasons to serve, protect, help, lead, guide, and build. It could be a garden, a grandchild, a neighbor, a cause, a mission. It doesn't have to be global. It just has to be real. Something that pulls you forward, something that asks something of you. And the magic is, when you say yes to that responsibility, your body hears it loud and clear. We're still in this. And it responds. Biology isn't philosophical, it's practical. It reads your behavior and adapts accordingly. If you stop pushing, it stops preparing. If you stop choosing, it stops supporting. But when you take back ownership, even over something small like your walk, your hydration, your breath, the system reactivates. Cells start communicating more clearly. Hormones stabilize. Focus returns and healing improves. That's not willpower. That's biological alignment. Purpose is fuel at the cellular level. So let's be precise. Retiring from stress is good. You've earned that. But don't retire from leadership. Don't retire from vision. Don't retire from responsibility, especially when it comes to your own. Once you hand that over to routine, convenience, or default, your life starts to close in. When life stops expanding, it contracts. The calendar gets smaller. Emotions flatten. Days blur together. And time slips away, not from speed, but from stillness. You were not designed for that. Even in your 70s, 80s, or 90s, your nervous system is still listening, still adapting, still waiting for orders. It's still hoping for a signal that says, let's move, let's try, let's decide. That signal doesn't have to be grand. It could be as simple as choosing to mentor someone, as humble as learning a new skill, or as steady as walking every day and making it non-negotiable. But it must come from you. No one can assign you purpose. It has to be a choice. Ask yourself honestly, who would be impacted if you showed up sharper this year? Who still needs your presence, your wisdom, your stability? What part of life still excites your curiosity? What story are you still writing? If you can't answer those questions, it's not because there's nothing left. It's because you stopped asking. Purpose doesn't leave you. You leave it by deciding there's nothing more to reach for. That's the beginning of decline. Not physical, but psychological. And once the mind disengages, the body isn't far behind. So take it back. Even if you've drifted, even if it's been years, even if your circle is smaller, your energy lower, or your role has changed, the mission hasn't ended. It's just evolving. Your strength now is in depth, not speed. In wisdom, not flash. In presence, not pressure. But it's still needed. The world still needs elders who choose to lead, not just sit, who choose to stay awake, aware, and alive, not just wait for the end. Because here's the final truth. When you stop steering your own life, your timeline shortens quickly. You don't get those years back, and you don't realize how much you gave up until your body forgets how to fight for them. So make the decision, not just to exist, but to live, not just to last, but to lead. Pick a direction, any direction, but make sure it's yours. In the moment you do, your body will follow. You won't fade. You'll ignite. You don't live long by accident. You live long because you resist the slow death of comfort, isolation, weakness, and mental retreat. If you're past 60, this is not your wind-down phase. This is your final masterpiece. Create it with intention. Walk stronger. Stand taller. Think deeper. Connect harder. Live like someone who plans to be here, strong, sharp, and present, well beyond what anyone expects.